She needed a hero, but she found a human. Zara watched her homeworld burn from the bridge of her escape pod. The silver-skinned Villani warrior pressed her six-fingered hands against the small window as orange flames consumed the cities below. Her people had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, but now they were nothing more than ash in memory. The Korthak Empire had swept across Valen Prime like a plague. Their black ships blocked out the sun, and their energy weapons turned mountains into glass. Zara was the last daughter of the royal bloodline, and she carried the genetic codes that could rebuild her civilization. But first she had to survive. Her pod shook as debris struck the hull. The navigation system flickered and died, leaving her drifting through the void toward an unknown star system. She had heard whispers about this region of space, stories of a young species called humans who had barely left their own planet. Most civilizations considered them primitive and weak. Zara did not have a choice. Her fuel was running low, and the nearest habitable world was a small blue planet the humans called Earth. She set her pod on a collision course with the third planet, hoping these creatures would show mercy to a refugee. The entry into Earth's atmosphere was violent. Fire surrounded her pod as it screamed through the sky. She crashed into a forest somewhere on the northern continent. The impact knocked her unconscious, and when she woke up, smoke was pouring from her ship's damaged systems. She stumbled out into the alien wilderness. Her silver skin reflected the strange yellow sunlight, and her forearms moved weakly as she tried to assess her injuries. Blood the color of deep purple flowed from cuts on her face. The air tasted different here, full of oxygen and strange organic compounds. Footsteps crunched through the fallen leaves. Zara spun around, expecting to see Korthak soldiers, but instead, she found herself looking at the strangest creature she had ever seen. It walked on only 2 legs and had pale pink skin with brown fur growing from its head. The being wore simple clothes and carried a long metal object. This was her first human. The human male spoke in a language she did not understand. His voice was deep and calm, not filled with the rage she expected from a warrior species. Her translator implant was damaged, but she could read his body language. He was not attacking her. Instead, he seemed concerned. She tried to communicate using hand gestures, pointing to her wounds and then to her crashed ship. The human nodded and set down his weapon. He pulled out a small device that glowed with soft light and began scanning her injuries. This confused Zara greatly. In her experience, when one species encountered another, the result was always war. The strong conquered the weak and took their resources, but this human was trying to help her. Why would he show kindness to an alien invader? The human, whose name she later learned was Jake, led her away from the crash site. He brought her to a small wooden structure hidden among the trees. Inside were primitive but functional medical supplies. He gestured for her to sit on a simple bed while he examined her wounds. Jake worked with careful hands, cleaning her cuts and bandaging the deeper injuries. He moved slowly so as not to frighten her and spoke in soothing tones, even though she could not understand his words. His brown eyes showed intelligence and compassion that surprised her over. The following days, Jake cared for Zara like she was family. He brought her food and water, taught her basic English words, and helped repair her damaged translator. When she could finally speak his language, the first thing she asked was why he had helped her. Jake smiled and said that helping others was simply the right thing to do. He explained that humans had a saying about treating strangers as they would want to be treated themselves. This concept was foreign to Zara. In her world, power determined survival and weakness meant death. As her strength returned, Zara told Jake about the fall of her empire. She described the Korthak invasion and how her people had been caught unprepared for such brutality. Jake listened without judgment, even when she admitted that the Villani had conquered other species in the past. She expected him to turn away in disgust, but instead Jake asked what she planned to do next. Zara explained that she needed to reach the Galactic Council to warn them about the Korthak threat. She also carried genetic material that could one day restore her people if she could find a safe place to establish a new colony. Jake nodded thoughtfully and said he would help her. He had friends who worked for something called NASA, and they might be able to get her message to the stars. Zara was amazed that this human would risk his own safety for an alien he barely knew. The next morning, Jake led her through the forest to a hidden facility where other humans worked on primitive space technology. These scientists and engineers welcomed Zara with the same kindness Jake had shown. They asked hundreds of questions about her ship, her people, and the galaxy beyond Earth. Dr. Amanda Price was the leader of the facility, and she immediately understood the danger the Korthak represented. She explained that humanity had been preparing for first contact for decades, but they had always assumed they would be the ones reaching out to alien civilizations. Working together, Zara and the human scientists managed to repair her ship's communication array. The message she sent to the Galactic Council was brief, but urgent. The Korthak Empire was expanding toward the galactic core and would reach the Council worlds within months. While they waited for a response, Zara learned more about human culture. She discovered that these people had fought terrible wars among themselves, but had also created incredible art, music, and literature. They valued individual freedom above collective power and believed that all thinking beings deserved dignity and respect. She found this philosophy both beautiful and dangerous. How could a species survive if they showed mercy to their enemies? How could they build an empire if they refused to dominate other worlds? Jake explained that humans measured success not by how much they controlled, but by how much they helped others grow. The response from the Galactic Council finally came, but it was not what Zara had hoped. The Council refused to believe that the mighty Korthak Empire could threaten their ancient civilizations. They dismissed her warning as the desperate lies of a defeated enemy. Zara felt hopeless until Dr. Price made an extraordinary offer. Humanity would help her rebuild her people on Earth. They would share their world and their resources with Villani refugees if any others had survived the invasion. Zara was overwhelmed by this generosity from a species she had once considered primitive. But the Korthak had been tracking Zara's signal, and their scout ships soon appeared in Earth's outer atmosphere. The human military scrambled their most advanced fighters, but their weapons were no match for alien technology. The first battle was a disaster, with dozens of human pilots lost. Zara watched the slaughter from the command center and felt rage building in her chest. These brave humans were dying to protect her and her people. She grabbed Jake's hand and told him there was another way. The Villani had developed biological weapons before their fall weapons that could stop the Korthak. Jake asked what she needed, and Zara explained that the genetic codes in her body could be used to create a virus that would only affect Korthak biology. It would not kill them, but it would make them too sick to fight. However, creating the weapon would require her to sacrifice her ability to rebuild her own species. The choice was simple. Zara could save her genetic legacy and let humanity fall, or she could save these good people and let her species die forever. She looked into Jake's kind eyes and knew what she had to do. Working through the night, Zara and the human scientists created the biological weapon. They loaded it into modified human missiles and launched them at the Korthak fleet. The virus spread quickly through the alien ships, and within hours the invaders were retreating back to deep space. The immediate threat was over, but Zara knew the Korthak would return once they developed immunity. To the virus she had bought Earth time, but not permanent safety. Jake found her sitting alone watching the sunrise and asked if she regretted her choice. Zara smiled and told him that she had finally understood what made humans special. They had taught her that some things were more important than survival. Power meant nothing if it was not used to protect others. Strength was worthless if it was not shared with those who needed help. In the months that followed, Zara became Earth's first alien citizen. She worked with human scientists to develop new technologies and helped train their military for future conflicts. Other species in the galaxy began to take notice of humanity, not because they were powerful, but because they were willing to sacrifice for strangers. The Korthak Empire eventually returned with a massive invasion fleet, expecting to find Earth defenseless. Instead, they discovered a world protected by an alliance of dozens of species who had been inspired by human compassion. The final battle lasted 3 days and ended with the Korthak surrender. Years later, Zara stood in the same forest where Jake had first found her. Now it was filled with refugees from across the galaxy, all of them welcomed by humanity. She had never rebuilt her species, but she had helped create something better. a galactic community based on cooperation rather than conquest. Jake approached her carrying his young daughter, who giggled at the sight of Zara's silver skin. The little girl had grown up in a world where aliens were friends, not enemies. She represented the future Zara had helped create. She needed a hero, but she found something better. She found a human,